Welcome to the next episode of Burning Boxes and Breaking Chains, the accountability podcast where right now our conversation is wrapped around It's My Fault. Today, my guest is Dr. Jeffrey Magee. And it's funny because Jeff and I met at a National Speakers Association conference. And Patricia Fripp, for those of you that know in NSA, she says that Jeffrey Magee has more degrees than a thermometer and has written more books than most people have read, which I love that quote.
She's an institution. I love her.
Yeah, Jeff's also has been speaking, doing keynotes and training for over 30 years, has sold over 500,000 books, and has actually written 39 books and have been translating into 21 different languages, which is awesome. So everybody welcome Jeff Magee to the podcast.
Good day. Thank you, Jeffrey. Good to see you again as well.
You too, brother. So tell me, let's get it started the right way here. Tell me sometime in your life that you may have had a situation and you looked, you stopped and you went, this was my fault, and it made a huge difference.
It's a great question. Let me frame it by possibly saying that every day we have opportunities to take ownership of our thoughts, our actions, our behaviors. And I don't think it's just a one time in our life where you can reflect back and say, wow, although we will today. I think what leads to success is when individuals can recognize accountability is 24/7. So again, it's how you think, it's how you surround yourself with the people from childhood to today. It's the decisions you choose and the ramifications of those. But for me, I think I would respond to it in more of a macro perspective. My tendency, so I think one of the ways all of us can move forward is recognize, what are your tendencies? What are your habits? One of my habits is I always am looking forward, and the people I'm around and the people I get to serve, I'm wanting them to look forward. And sometimes I have to reflect and pause and realize that what gets me in trouble is not everyone wants to move forward at the same pace I would like them to. I can see greatness in people around me, and I would rather they let go, stop complaining, and move forward. As you talk about burning boxes, sometimes the boxes I burn is I think faster and my mouth moves faster than others probably would like. And that gets me in trouble quite often.
Dude, I so relate to that. Sometimes my mouth says things, my mind goes, what'd you just say?
Was that my inner voice or outer voice? What just happened here?
Oh my gosh, it's so true, man. That's awesome. That's a great perspective too. And when you were saying that, I thought about it, saying, hey, that's why the windshield on your car is so big and the rearview mirror is so small. You need to quit looking back.
I have used that metaphor for decades in my keynotes. I'll have people stand up and say, just kind of reflect on where you are. That's present tense.
Oh, yeah.
If you were a time machine, an automobile in life, your present tense is where you are. And then I'll have people do exactly what you said. Just kind of look in front of you. You have this huge windshield. That's the future. Opportunities. Get this little mirror up there. And it's amazing how many of us get distracted by what's already gone by and don't focus on what's in front of us.
Oh, amen. That's the one thing that Thomas Edison had a quote too. He said, most people knock the opportunity because it shows up in blue jeans and looks like work.
Hey, this is like we're riffing off each other as two mental magicians magically and musicians music-wise.
It's amazing though, man. I mean, when I get to talking with like-minded people, I remember things that aren't normally on the tip of my tongue most days. It's like sitting around telling jokes, man. I'll sit and tell jokes for hours because it'll be a cascade effect from the other person that I'm sitting with. So when you're sitting with like-minded people, the train of thought starts getting in tune with each other.
Jeff, that's a great point with the school of thought on accountability. Again, are you interacting with people that uplift you, and therefore when they uplift you, you uplift them? That's a small population of people on the planet, but accountability wise, you make that choice versus a lot of people allow themselves to be consumed by neutral and negative forces, people that want to commiserate on, what didn't go right. Well, that's a long list for every one of us. How about shut up, move forward?
Absolutely. It's the old analogy with the bucket of crabs, man. When one tries to climb out, the rest of them want to drag him back in there. And I'm like, I'm not a crab.
It's interesting. We could all play student, but then in the world of accountability, it's at a point of playing student, which can be very constructive if you stop, catch, and look in the mirror and say, okay, how's that apply to me? Meaning, We live in this world of social media on our phones, on our iPads, on our laptops, on our computers. News is consumed the same way. And if you look all around us, decades ago, I went to college to be a journalist talking about accountability. And I remember, phenomenal professor Beverly Paulson, long since passed away. She worked for the Miami Herald down near side of the country for, hundreds of years. She was great. But I remember her, talking about journalists, what our role is in society, what editors' roles are in society, what commentators, roles in society. She talked about, journalists do not interview journalists. Journalists report facts. You don't know if it's a fact unless you can have it corroborated by 2 or 3 other people that don't even know each other. Today, if you take just that basic bottom line of how to hold yourself accountable to be a great journalist, today we turn on the television, we have, journalists interviewing journalists, and all of them together have never done anything in life, but boy, they sure have the opinions. That pulls you down versus surrounding yourself with great people.
Dude, I turned off the news in 2020. It's like I just got tired because being a speaker, even before that was 2 years before I joined the National Speakers Association. But I speak for a living in my corporate gig, and I learned years ago listening to Jim Rohn and Les Brown and stuff that your words matter, and when you're using words to elicit a negative response out of somebody, I don't have time to listen to you. I don't have time for that in my life. It's like I don't want to be being told who to be fearful of or what class of people I should hate or look down on. That's not why I'm here. So I'm here to enjoy life and trying to spread joy to other people. And I've said it on other podcasts. I was the guy early on in my life that people didn't invite me back a second time to apologize for the crap I did the first time. And I'm not that guy anymore. And it's all about accountability, being able to look myself in the mirror and know that I can stand tall and look myself in the eye. So it allows me to look other people in the eye and deal with them on an honest basis every day.
And that takes focus and discipline and passion, but that all radiates from values and vision. And some people, they don't realize it because at a young age, we start getting programmed by how we're educated and how we're influenced and the different informational pieces that fly at us from all sides. And that's a level of accountability that when you're in the environment of raising or influencing young minds, are you doing it objectively or are you doing it because you have a biased agenda? That creates our future challenges. Part of your own backstory is that you arrived at a point in your life where you realized, wait a second, some of those key influencers in my life are causing me to have biases that I really don't want to subscribe to. So you held yourself accountable, whether that's walking away from a school, a church, a community, some of your family. I've got lots of brothers and sisters. I love them all, but that doesn't mean I have to necessarily say, wait a minute, one of them is not in the same alignment universe as me. So I don't have to dislike that person, but I don't need to subscribe to everything they say. Nope. Accountability.
Absolutely. Absolutely not. I totally agree with that. And I was commenting on somebody's post the other day online. It's in the Maxwell group with me. It's like sometimes you have to look back and you have to question everything that goes on, because a lot of times we learn behavior from people that learned behavior and never questioned it. And it just rolls down from it becomes generational, that this is the way you're supposed to think, or this is the way you're supposed to act. And all of a sudden you wake up and you go, wait a minute, that's not right. That doesn't make me feel right in my gut. So then you start questioning it. And then once you do it for a certain period of time, it truly becomes a habit and you do it instantaneously. Sometimes I'll catch myself if I repeat something too many times, whether it's been a tragedy or sad times, like, why do I keep saying this? What am I getting out of it? And that's one of the things I tell people all the time. You always ask myself, why? Why did I do this? Why did I say that? Why am I thinking this way? And then the real honest thing is, what am I getting out of it? And I have to be brutally honest with myself with that question, because trust me, whether it's negative or positive, I'm getting something out of that situation.
You just hit something huge. One of the books I wrote a couple of years ago with John Wiley is a book called Your Trajectory Code. It's the only personal success book I've written out of those 39 you referenced. And it came to me by listening to one of my clients. I do a lot of work in different market segments, but the work that I do is about mind shift. And then it cascades into sales and leadership, because I grew up, once I left journalism, realizing how unaccountable it was and how negative it is and how toxic it was. I realized that wasn't my DNA. Now I did start a magazine called Professional Performance Magazine, and it's 34 years in a running. And every article in there is about positivity, written by phenomenal, successful individuals globally. But what that big circle taught me early on was that, a lot of people, they actually don't realize they're living to be negative. And you just said two things. And one of the models in Trajectory Code, which I use in all of my Leadership and Sales Institute programming, is a model called the Trajectory Code. So visualize a V diagram. And so where it starts at the bottom is a starting point. You can put a lot of labels on that. One trajectory goes towards the word success, and the other trajectory goes towards the word derailment and failure. Well, the derailment line is the finite line. You're always going to crash into a wall. The success line goes out into infinity. And the point that I create with that model is profound, because it's what you just said, that our listeners need to go back and rehear your statement. When we start anything in life, at the beginning, we have a choice, whether it's conscious or unconscious. It's going to either take us towards derailment ultimately or success. And by not recognizing our habits, our mindset, our behaviors, our actions, we may be repeating what is a redundancy towards negativity, or are we repeating the positive past? So my statement then from the stage is the difference between failure and success is nothing. And everyone leans back and goes, well, wait a minute, that's a statement I'm not used to hearing. And so what I'm challenging our thought is simply this. I call them behaviors. There's 5 behaviors that guaranteed will take you to failure, but they're the same 5 behaviors that will take you towards success. Mm-hmm. So you decide how you want to calibrate those 5 behaviors, because there's no way you're not going to do them, is what people start to see as I write this on the board, and everyone's heads blow up. They go, oh my God, you're right. So how do we become more successful? And I love the theme of your podcast, because it is all around accountability. And so what I've recognized, Jeff, is this, if you'd like me to share, and that is, I think there's 5 levels of accountability. If someone's looking for a model, a map, a matrix, a paradigm, there's 5 ways you can ensure you're going to have constructive forward-moving accountability. But it's scary, because it's going to touch everything from birth to death that's going to influence us to be accountable, to either go in a negative direction or a positive. And so that's, to me, what it's all about. So I love when you said, wait a minute, I mean, if I keep doubling down on stupid, I'm going to be a failure.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's it. Absolutely correct. And that's the thing, is it's a choice. And some people, they get so wrapped up into that cocoon that they were born and raised in, they don't realize that they have a choice to step out of that and become somebody else.
So true. So and so here's kind of how you lay it down. So if we think about accountability, and for our listeners, if you have the ability to take some notes, write this down, because here's your $1 billion formula. If you're a business owner, here's your formula for creating a more engaged, purposeful, resilient, focused, decisive organization that are doing things deliberately. Well, there's a whole bunch of words that is strung together, which are all the buzzwords everyone wants from a keynote speaker or a training program or their life coach. So here are the 5 levels of accountability. Number 1, and this is the secret. Number 1 is self. And what we're talking about on this podcast, Jeff, a lot of times is, how do you help yourself to be more accountable? How do you hold yourself accountable? What I realize is number 1 is almost impossible without the next 4. So here's how you create a child who's going to be more accountable. You can always say to your child, make smart choices. But if you don't have the next 4 in alignment, that child's going to sometimes think, hey, dad and mom's not here. So smart choice to me is, let me have, 5 pounds of sugar right now. So let's go for it. So if you want to be more accountable in terms of the people you hire, the people that you manage, the people that you direct, the people you surround yourself with, the people you want to be, it's not number 1. So number 1 is self, and that does occasionally happen. But the way you create self-accountable people, number 2, of the 5, number 2 is your secret. Systems. You have to create systems of accountability. You and I are of age where we probably grew up, where in our house we had a grocery list somewhere in the kitchen or on the refrigerator, a piece of paper magnetized with a penciled string attached or something. And if you finish something in the fridge or the cupboard, you're supposed to write it down on that grocery list. So the point of that is this: if you go to the grocery store with a list, there's your system. You're probably going to be more accountable to find what's on the list to make sure you get the key essentials versus all the extra things you wanted to get instead. So again, what are your systems? Safety world, we see examples. OSHA. OSHA is an organization. That's an example of system to hold us accountable. If you're in an industrial environment where you have to do certain things before you can turn on a piece of machinery so no one gets hurt. So think about what you have. You have an older child, younger child, and you grow and empower and you nurture and you motivate and you acknowledge the older child's responsibilities. See, there's another accountability word to look out for their younger brother or sister. And they do that, but you have a system in place. So 1 is self, 2 is system, 3 and 4 you can invert, I don't care. But if you study successful businesses, they have a lot of 1s and people go, oh my God, how do I create an environment and culture like all of their 1s? Well, it's because they have a clearly defined number 2, systems of accountability, and it's influenced and managed and kept up by number 3, peer. What's your peer accountability? You talk about, again, and making a major life shift where you had to leave an institution that you were part of all of your life because the people there were going in the wrong trajectory, derailment, and you wanted to go in another one. So it's the people. 4 is going to be then the word customer. Do you have a customer feedback loop that will give you feedback where you're willing to hear it, or do you not want the customer to tell you the true answers? So who are your customers in life that you serve that will give you feedback? And then that takes you to number 5, which is always the boss or the parent on the top of that pyramid. So I tell people that if you're the parent and you're feeling like you're having to over focus and work because you have to do everything to hold number 1, the person accountable, or if you're the boss, number 5, and you're having to do everything to hold your employees accountable, employees being number 1, then it's because points 2, 3, and 4 don't exist or they're screwed up. So if you want to become more accountable to your podcast and our listeners, I just gave you a very powerful model you can look at today to get yourself accelerating in the right direction.
Absolutely. And that was, I've said before too, one of the biggest impacts on me early on, and it came out of a newspaper, and I've still got the clipping in my desk drawer in my office. I carried it in my wallet for years. It's called The Man in the Glass.
Oh, yeah, share it with everyone right now. This is powerful.
This is where they said, people will tell you you're straight good guy and pat you on the back as you pass, but the man in the glass would tell you you're a bum if you can't look him in the eye, because at the end of the day it's going to be heartache and tears if you've cheated that guy in the glass and he's not your friend. It's amazing. I've asked people, and even in NSA meetings, can you name on one hand a list of people that you admire and respect in your life? And I said, well, how far down that list until you show up on there?
So let's pause there for a second, because this is monumental of what you just said. A lot of us have been conditioned that the answer to that question you just posed is not supposed to be said out loud because you're then arrogant or egotistical or self-absorbed or etc. Versus the powerful psychology. And keep in mind, a lot of people go into psychology because they're so messed up, they're trying to figure themselves out. So there's good news for the planet. You go into someone who doesn't have their own crap together, is going to tell you how to get yours together. So now let's set that to the side. So what psychology also then tells us is, again, everything we've just talked about culminates into how you have an internal dialogue. I mean, those people, those places, those things, those experiences, good, bad, and different from birth to whatever your age is today, that's a dialogue in your head. And if you like that station, you like how it sounds and how it's playing, then recognize how you got there so you can double down with more of it. But if you don't like how it sounds, change it. And there's your point. We, in essence, are not willing to make the changes, but we're quick at complaining about everything.
Yep. So I tell people all the time, I say, if you don't like the way your life is going, change it. It's that simple, and it's that hard, because your mind is the most powerful and the most devious tool that you own.
You hit it. Again, you talk about that, the glass and that imagery and that person, how far down the list before your name comes up. I mean, the point of someone, asking that question, if you were to say, one of the people I admire is myself, and people didn't immediately have their heads blow up, then what they would really ask is the follow-up question. Well, why do you say that? Then you're going to get the learning. I mean, sometimes people say, who do you listen to in making your decisions? And someone might answer with, I listen to myself. And then people, laugh, or they, start ridiculing, and they miss the whole point of saying, well, unbundle that, unpack that. Tell me what that means, because then you're going to get the lessons. Well, I've learned that when I make a decision, I do this and this, or I think about this or this, or I talk to this or this, or I think to myself, if I had a chance to talk to Thomas Edison, what would Thomas Edison tell me? See, again, if you've never read anything on Thomas Edison, that's going to be a flat line. There's no frequency there. So again, all of those components are absolutely huge. I love what you just said, and people sometimes dismiss it too quickly.
Well, that's the thing I learned too. I loved listening to Rene Rodriguez at the NSA and Influence. I think it was in Colorado a couple of years ago. And he said, sometimes when people ask that question, it is your responsibility to frame it, instead of just throwing it out there and then letting their mind use their experiences to frame it for you.
Brilliant.
So in what you just said is like, hey, I admire myself. Well, you can lead it up to, it's like, I looked around and there's a lot of things, and because I learned how to become an person of integrity and honesty and things like that, that's one of the reasons why I admire myself. So you frame it in their head before you allow them to say, man, he's arrogant. So that, again, it's your fault how these things go when you're having conversations with people.
It's absolutely profound. And again, you think about framing it, it gives you then the opportunity to recognize how you've been conditioned to think and feel, and have biases, whether they're, conscious or unconscious to you. Again, for our listeners that are not tracking, you said NSA a couple of times. Let's unbundle that. So every trade industry has professional associations. And so the more you're involved with your different associations has the opportunity for you to be influenced, to Jeff in our conversation around accountability. NSA stands for the National Speakers Association. So it's made up of those individuals that derive a significant amount of their income from professional speaking, whether that's keynotes at conferences, conventions, trade shows, people that make a living by the spoken word. They do training and development. So the kind of that space, and it's powerful. Take it one step deeper, and you have to start to realize and recognize, who are you listening to? Every day, what music or what news or the people around you in your space. For me, I was a musician growing up, and I like music. Anyone that can actually hold a note for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds, that's called music. If it's not able to hold a note, that's just noise.
That's me.
If I have to turn it down to 1 decibel because it's so obnoxious, that's not music, that's noise. So I've got jazz music playing all the time, whether it's old or new. Kind of hard to listen to jazz music and be in a bad mood, because seldom are there any words. And if there are words, it's typically forward focused. Again, that's an example of, you are in real time, 100% of what you do all the time. Absolutely. And you've got to be conscious of that. And accountability then comes down to, as you said, what are the hard choices you're trying to make and what are the easy choices? What are the choices you make and how do those impact where you're really trying to go in life and what's important? And back to the starting question, sometimes what my accountability gets me in trouble is that, and I know I'm not perfect, and I have a lot of great people around me that are giving me feedback to help me to be better every day. So with that said, I realized a lot of other people don't want feedback on when they're doing damage to themselves and others.
Absolutely. And, you said that about the accountability and looking back at yourself. That's one of the things I learned years ago, because I was talking with someone, I was working through some issues, and they asked a very pointed question. They said, who the hell do you think you are? And I went, wow. So nowadays I tell people, I realize that I am a grain of sand on the beaches of life. I am not all that in a bag of chips and a bowl of grits. I'm just not. So I quit taking myself so seriously and thinking I was all that important, because I'm not. Now, I may be here to be an important part in someone's life, and people are put on this planet for a reason. And sometimes, in all honesty, I just think that they're here to teach me how to deal with them, because I can't find any other qualitative, substance on why they might be here. But that's a conversation for another day. But being able to have some self-deprecation, it helps you get through the day. It does me, and when I ask people, sometimes I say, who do you have the most conversations with? People never say themselves, never. And there are more conversations going on in this head than I ever have verbally in a day's time.
And you talk about accountability, one of my positives and negatives, and I know no one else watching or listening does this one. I'm sure you never have, but you talk about those voices. I find myself quite often talking out loud, and I don't have an earbud in where I can fake it that I'm on the phone with somebody. I'm just talking out loud, having a great old conversation. I'm asking and answering. What's that conversation sound like if you hit record?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I saw somebody not too long ago. They said, hey, if you see me talking to myself, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm having a board meeting. Leave me alone.
That's the best one yet.
I'm having a board meeting.
And there's your self-deprecation. If you can't laugh at yourself,
if you
step off the planet.
If you can't, I feel sorry for you. And you need to figure out how to do that. because I don't take myself too seriously, because I learned a long time ago, we're not getting out of here alive anyway.
Yeah, it's
So
funny talking about your gentleman with your board of directors. I'm going to go back to, one of the things I talk about with lots of businesses, and things is a vague word that we're never supposed to use. We have a great friend, Patricia Fripp. She would be giving me accountability feedback for using that word. So how do you look at accountability? And that's board of directors comment your entrepreneur was talking about. One of the elements I share with small business owners and privately held businesses that maybe are not of scale, where they have a board of directors. I share it with individuals. And it's, taking the same philosophy of what a real board should be providing to a business, which is accountability lines, and having your own advisory board. Who's that small number of people around you that may not even be in your own zip code that you can access for powerful insights? And if you are a business person, a solo entrepreneur, who are some people you have that you can be accessing to be on your mental board of directors as your CFO, or your chief technology officer, or your chief legal officer, or your chief marketing and sales officer? And I talk about that in your trajectory code. I call it your fist factor, which more people talk about. Where do you get your power, strength, and energy from? When you make a fist, tell you open it up, you have 5 fingers. There's 5 types of people that can also be a part of your mental board of directors and hold you accountable. So again, back to this theme of accountability. If a person really wants to tie into this thread of accountability to become significantly more successful, there's great literature you should be reading and consuming, listening to, programs you could be attending, but it's also a lifestyle, and you have to build this and embed this in who you are.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's like a typical habit. You've got to continue doing it until it becomes a natural part of your day.
And it has to be the right habit. And that comes back to accountability. Because again, you can become very proficient at a bad habit, and you're going to wonder why you're not successful. But becoming proficient in the right habits and behaviors and mindsets takes discipline and a lot of work. And it's a never ending exercise. And that's sometimes the problem that people have, is we've been conditioned, at least in our culture, there's a start and a finish, not a start with never going to see the finish.
This is true. And it becomes a day-to-day deal. Every day you need to be able to, at the end of the day, look back and say, "What did I do something wrong?" And if you did, promptly admit it. Take accountability for your actions throughout the day and your words.
It changes everything when you can hold yourself accountable, saying, "Hey, I screwed up and I'm sorry," because now everyone had all that energy to pile onto you. It's kind of like, okay, I can't pile on you. It's like, it's a little kid on the playground getting beat up. At some point, everyone goes, "Look, this is too easy to beat them up. Let go. Stop this." So you're right. Instead of, and then turn it around and say, "Okay, how do I get out of this hole? How do I make it better? And how do I never go in that hole again?"
Well, it's like there was a real life incident last night. I got back from this trip over the weekend to Scottsdale, and my son had been YouTubing how to fix my lazy boy chair. They sent me the parts to fix it because I'm pretty handy, and he wanted to go through it last night, and it was already past my bedtime by the time I got home. I was like, "Dude, I'm not ready to talk about that." But I dismissed it. He was excited that he had a solution, and I didn't want to hear it. So today I owe him an apology because of that. So I hold myself accountable there too for my actions, that, I rained on his parade when he had a solution here. And at that point in time, I didn't need to hear it last night. I was too tired.
Brilliant. And that's good as us as individuals, as parents, as brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, neighbors. Again, the civility that needs to be sometimes isn't, because we're not holding ourselves accountable to be civil with one another. I think we have too many examples around us of chaos and confusion and conflict and bitterness, as opposed to, do we have equal or more examples around us of alignment and unity and civility? It's a choice, but I tell you what, the more you're civil, sometimes people don't want to consume and buy into that track.
That's true. And it's a shame that with social media in the world today, too many people are ready to celebrate that non-civility that's going on out there, and where people aren't being civil to themselves. And I hear even some of the politicians or leaders, so-called leaders in the market, when I hear them on the news talking about somebody that they say, "Well, they're an idiot." I'm like, okay, how well do you think they're going to work with you now? And you just told the whole world you think they're an idiot, and you can't go back and get any resolution. If you think he's an idiot, go to him. Say, "Dude, we got to talk, and iron it out between yourselves. Don't put it out there in the market just so somebody can get some brownie points and be first with a story. So
We do a lot of that anymore. It's amazing. Absolutely
do.
amazing.
Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time this morning to join me on this podcast. I'm not sure when this episode will air, but it will be soon.
Thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun.
Is there anything you would like to wrap up with, a nugget you could leave the audience with?
I love it. 4 words: legacy, unleash your talent. Unleash the talent within you, unleash the talent within others. And when you do that, that becomes a legacy.
Awesome. Awesome. Jeff, thank you so much for your time this morning, and we will catch you later.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody.